Anyone that knows me from the Bunker Club will know that I am a huge Memoir 44 fan, and I'm quite chuffed with the fact that I own pretty much everything that's in print for Memoir 44, if not one or two copies of it, possibly 5 copies of the base game as well, and some of the more obscure things. It is by no means a new game. I appreciate that, but it is a game that is very dear to my heart. Operation Overlord. This is actually the third copy of this expansion that I've bought, but I've never actually unboxed one. Why then would I bother my time unboxing this? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, the popularity of Memoir 44 never really goes away. In fact, I'm a member of a couple of Memoir 44 groups, and it is still growing. And there's a huge frustration among the fan base that a lot of the expansions like this are becoming hard to get or are out of print and therefore getting charged silly money. Thankfully, Days of Wonder have eventually listened to the cries from the wilderness from the fan base, and there is a reprint underway for a lot of things, including, I believe, the Overlord Pack 2. Now, Memoir 44, generally speaking, 2-player game. Okay, box set, miles of fun to be had out of that on its own. And for many, that is where the fun begins and ends. Partly due to the difficulty of getting anything else, but partly because some people just don't like the added complexity of making it any bigger. Operation Overlord takes the standard map, makes it twice the size, and there are some pre-printed Overlord maps, as well as quite a few scenarios online that use the Overlord format. So it's standard board depth, but double board width. And it divides the board up that you can actually have 8 players. 3 generals, one commanding each section of the battlefield on each side, and then a commander-in-chief at the back who decides the allocations of cards. This little pack gives you the fancy pants versions of the cards that work particularly well for Overlord, as well as the rules for Overlord, and if I remember correctly, a couple of scenarios. There's a little back in the box there. Blah, blah. We open that up, and inside you are met with your rulebook. Not an awful lot there. We'll come to that in a second. We've got some tokens, and then a big, largely empty box, I'm afraid to tell you, but very nicely, some extra dice, and 2 packs of cards. One for each side of the table, because that's how this was supposed to work in Overlord. Everyone's drawn from their own deck. Axis and Allies side, they're not sharing one deck the same way you do in a basic game. Okay, so having the additional dice is nice because everybody can have their own dice along with your base games, or if you've got a couple of base games, you're well elected for everyone having their own dice. And in these current climates of COVID and whatnot, people not sharing dice in a game is kind of nice, because you can still do this with a fair degree of social distancing for your own safety and whatnot. So the card supplemental armies gives you Japanese forces there. And whoops, we've just punched our finger through it. On the reverse of them is Axis forces. And then we have Soviet. And we've got Allies. So there we go. Nice little touch to get that. That's sort of about the third set of them that I've got, which means that even for some of the bigger Pacific maps and things like that there, I can kind of go to town, because the expansion pack that actually gives you the sort of Japanese forces is hen's teeth to get hold of now, and indeed one of those ones that has a ludicrous price tag attached to it for no good reason whatsoever. So they call it a rule book. It's a rule booklet at being, that's being sort of very generous. So a little introduction, run through the components, how the idea of teams works, how you now divide the board up. They're given the example here of 2 base game boards joined together, and here is a pre-printed map version there. The new game turn, a couple of new symbols that appear on the cards. And it's not that they're making you do new things, they've just added ways to kind of help you figure out where the cards go. The orange or burgundy, red, depending on what colour spectrum you see in there, are the cards that a field general can play given by their COC. The blue cards are supposed to be one-offs that can be played by the commander in charge, so they can make a decision to play one of those directly on the battlefield. These kind of do bigger, cooler things. These sort of do standard stuff for you, okay? And an example here, a commander can play up to 3 cards. So if we had our left, centre and right flank field general and our COC sitting behind them, he can turn around and dish out 3 cards, 1 to each or whatever hour. He can dish out 2 and play 1. He can only play 1 blue card regardless of what he or she would like to do. You can only get away with one of them at a time because they are quite powerful. A section that doesn't get given a card can make an initiative roll, and this is a new aspect, obviously, purposefully for Overlord, where they get to roll a single die, and if they roll infantry symbol, they can command an infantry unit. If they roll a tank symbol, they can command an armor unit. If they roll a star, they can order a unit of their choice. If they roll a flag, 1 unit of your choice must retreat 1 hex, and the unit may not battle. If none of your units is able to retreat, then one of them must lose a figure. It kind of backfires on you. And the grenade symbol, the unit of your choice must lose 1 figure. The unit may not battle. Not fun. And there we go, playing Overlord with the expansions. Overlord Pacific Theatre, Overlord and the Air Pack. Now, this, I think, is the old Air Pack, and the new Air Pack rules will supersede that. They'll keep you right themselves. They were very good at what they've done with those, so do check those out. And a little quick reference on the back there as well. We'll just give you a quick look-see here at one of the deck's cards. As I say, 2 decks, 1 for each side. Okay, so just so that you can see the kind of the style of what is going on with this one. Not going to run through them all in any stretch of the imagination. Just to sort of let you see the spread of them more than anything else. Obviously, fresh out of the bag, they will need a big shuffle. They are largely similar to the base deck or the base game cards. It's the symbols like this here and being a bit more sort of explanation as to where exactly you can play it, one part of a section as opposed to anywhere in the section, things like that there. Recon cards that allow you to draw 3 cards, etc. So whilst the COC can play 3 cards every turn, they can normally only draw back 2, and you must always keep 1 card in your hand. So he can't just play all of his cards out. There we go. Probes, lots of probes, lots more probes, tons of probes. I think it's roughly twice the card count, or slightly over just the card count of a standard basic deck. Assault, Recon, and Force. And we get the Red Army rolls and the US Marine Corps. Those are Nations cards as a little bonus. It's funny, I've got pretty much all of these. It does seem that some of them just don't exist. There's numbers that I can't find any real world record of. Now, sort of what we were sort of saying here, just to sort of bring this home to you, if you're familiar with Memoir 44, you'll know that you get a card and you're playing at the left flank, center flank, or right flank. Okay, in this one, you're being allocated a card unless you're playing it one-on-one, which is fine. It still works out. It gives you a bigger, meatier game, which is great fun. And to be honest, that's quite often how we end up playing it. But the idea is, if I'm going to issue this card out, I can either give it to the left flank or to the right flank. They're allowed to order 2 units, and the 2 units are in one section or the other. So if you think about the standard Memoir 44 board, the standard Memoir 44 board has the little red dotted lines that divide it, so you get your center, your left, and your right. When you bring 2 boards together, suddenly you've got extra red lines. So it's left, center, and right with a red line up the middle of each of those. And when you get a card like that, and if you're playing it on the left, the General still has to decide whether to play it in one section or the other of the left flank, or if it was a card for the centre, it's in one section or other of the centre, and so on with the left. Of course, if you're not familiar with Memoir 44, that doesn't help you in the slightest. You have no idea what I'm talking about. But there we go. That's that job done. And that's it. That's Overlord. Very briefly, probably very poorly put across to you. But that's the Overlord expansion. This particular one we picked up off Amazon for about 14 quid, which is fairly good. There are still a few places have it, the likes of Zatu Games and that there have it, and they're not far off that price either. It is a great little expansion, and thanks to Days of Wonder having a lot of the map packs on the website that you can just download and then set up yourself using it. If you have 2 copies of the base game, either yourself or access to it because of a friend, then Overlord is a great thing to have. If you don't have 2 copies of the base game, if you are the one soul who is the Memoir 44 head, it's probably still worth picking up because of the price, and then see if you can track down a second board, because it's a lot of fun. If you're a fan of the game, you already know it's good crack. This just makes it twice as good. It's bigger, longer fight. That's what it's all about. Quite often, myself and one of my fellow dwellers at the bunker would set up and play an Overlord game. We'll play a Memoir game when we are sort of, we've got a bit of time until Joe arrives, and then we're going to play whatever. Let's begin Memoir. But quite often we will sit down and go, oh, yeah, what are we doing it? Let's do Overlord, and we'll play it the both ways as if it was a standard map in that regard. And that comfortably will fill an evening for us, because we're quite slow and we talk a lot as well. So there you go, Memoir 44, Days of Wonder, asmodee Games, Operation Overlord expansion pack. Hopefully that at least lets you know what you get in it and what it's for, and whether for the bargain price that you can still pick it up for, it's something that you want to add to your collection. Do add it to your collection. As always, if you can, give us a like in the thing down there, give us a subscribe in the thing over there, and if you can nip over to Facebook and give our page a wee like, it would be lovely. Thank you very much for your time. See you soon. Bye bye.